It's good to be seen. It's even better to be heard live and seen live as you guys are tuning in tonight live on whether it's the Buffalo Fanbase Twitter, whether it's my Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take, or the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook, or the Thomas Take Sports Podcast YouTube channel, or my personal Facebook. I greatly appreciate all of you tuning in tonight. This is a special episode. With each week that passes, with each win, we are one step closer to the Super Bowl. And of course, I got to say, I am really excited. Got a little bit of a nosebleed there. My apologies. Really excited to go through this this game between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'll tell you, when it comes down to it, I think you're going to get a full array of an analysis, as you always do on this show. But when it comes down to it, there is a lot to talk about leading up to this game. What has led us here, I think, is extremely important for me to hit on tonight, and that was the goal when I wrote out the set list, or the kind of list of how I was going to put this show together tonight. Really wanted to illustrate what is going to make this show and what is going to make this season that much more amazing than it already has been. How did we get here? First off, how did we get here? Talking about this team as often as I do during the offseason, during the regular season, nobody predicted that this season the Buffalo Bills would find themselves back in the AFC title game. We had hoped, but nobody predicted it. Nobody thought that the Buffalo Bills would be AFC title game worthy this season. Why did they think that? They thought that for a wide variety of reasons. Reason number one, they thought that Josh Allen wasn't going to have as good a season because he didn't have Stephon Diggs this time, or because there's too many new weapons. I mean, I've heard all sorts of reasons leading into this season why people thought the Buffalo Bills just would not be good enough. And not only did they clinch the division with 5 or 6 weeks remaining in the season, they are headed to the AFC Championship game, taking on the 1 seed, the big bad Kansas City Chiefs, the dynasty that is the Kansas City Chiefs. You could not write it any better for how this season could put the Buffalo Bills back in their first Super Bowl since 1993, 1994, and then some. So before I get into that, I want to talk about a few things. First off, fire away your comments. Please, folks, fire away your comments as this is live tonight. Too special of an episode, too momentous of an occasion for me to not allow you guys, the Bills Mafia, watching on the Buffalo Fanbase Network right now. Really appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week. And then some, following along with my Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take, as well as my Instagram and everything. I really appreciate you guys staying up to date. All things Thomas Take Sports Podcast, all things Buffalo Bills. A lot of great shows on this network as well that I'm a part of. And this show, of course, sponsored by 26shirts.com for all of your Buffalo sports apparel needs, whether you're looking to get some new Bills gear, new Sabres stuff, new Bandits, new Bisons, adding to your repertoire of Buffalo fandom apparel. 26shirts.com. 26shirts.com is the place to make that happen. So I want to recap, first and foremost, the Bills' defeat of the Baltimore Ravens. Messed up the score there. Fat fingers. My apologies. Bills defeat the Ravens 27-25 in a nail-biter. A classic game. This game had just as much, pomp and circumstance as much as this upcoming game against the Kansas City Chiefs, because you get the whole MVP narrative of Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen head to head, meeting in the playoffs, who would come out on top. And I got to tell you, I was worried. I was worried about this game. Going into this game Friday, just to paint the picture for you guys, I was ready to hop on a bunch of different shows. I was ready to do my whole, podcast row, if you want to call it that. I got food poisoning. It was terrible. It was the worst food poisoning I've ever had. And it was so bad that I was really scared. Number one, because of how bad it was. Number two, I was even more scared because I thought I was going to miss this game. I thought there would be a chance that I would not have the strength to watch this game with the amount of sickness that was coming out of me. I was down with the sickness. I was definitely down, but there was no way I was going to miss this game. I pushed through, was able to watch it at home, and it was a nail biter. And I will say that it was nice. It was nice for once. For once in my life, I could watch a Bills game, and the way that game ended, I could come away and I could say, you know what? Did the Bills win that game or did the Ravens lose that game? The answer to that is I don't give a shit. The Bills won. That's all that matters. The Bills found a way to win, and they were able to win in a form and fashion that they don't normally win in. The football gods were smiling down on Buffalo, and it might have looked like the forces of nature in Buffalo allowed Mark Andrews to drop that 2-point conversion pass. And I really feel for Mark Andrews. I do. I'm a big fan of his. I've had him on my fantasy teams a few times. All jokes aside, Mark Andrews is a great tight end. He just made a crucial mistake in a crucial moment that obviously ended the season of the Baltimore Ravens. But Buffalo did a lot of things right prior to that happening for me to look at that game and say, you know what? Yeah, every game can come down to one or two different moments. Usually Buffalo is on the wrong side of those one or two moments. Usually Buffalo is the team that has the player that drops the pass like they did with Stephon Diggs, or the player that misses the field goal, dare I say it, with Scott Norwood, or the Music City Miracle. You name it. There has been far too many euphemisms for moments that are notorious in the franchise history of the Buffalo Bills, and I'm so thankful that the Bills were able to be on the right side of that in front of those fans that were cheering really loud from the opening moment of that game to the end of it. So it's been a weird weekend. It's been a weird week. I opened the show and I started to have a nosebleed. I mean, it's like -2 degrees right now, and it was -4 this morning. So we're dealing with it, right? We're battling through it. I'm not 100% for this show. To be honest with you, I'm probably at about 60, 70, but it's too important of a show for me to not give a preview of this upcoming game. And I wanted to touch on the Bills' victory over the Ravens. It was a great victory. Von Miller made a massive, massive contribution to this win. And I was really happy to see the heads-up play of this defense, whether it was the DeMar Hamlin strip or the Terrell Bernard strip. The turnover battle has been such a key point of emphasis for Buffalo that it's been a huge priority for them in winning games. And it is for every team, but it's much easier said to make that a priority than to actually do it each and every single week. And I think Buffalo's turnover margin is like plus 36 at this point, which is unheard of. I think it's the best turnover margin that they've had, at least in the last 20, 25, 30 years. Could be even more than that. I'd have to have you guys, fact check me on that to give me the exact year. But turnover margin has been incredibly one-sided to the benefit of the Buffalo Bills, and that was the case in this game. This game was 2 points for a reason, 2 points apart for a reason. Both teams are way too good for one team to make 3 mistakes, 3 turnovers, and the other team to take advantage of those 3 turnovers. Buffalo didn't really take advantage of those as well as I think they should have. I will say that. And this is part of the point of the show that I got to just point something out, as I always do. This is the part of the show where I just acknowledge something that even though the Bills got a victory, even though they came away with this nail biter and they won it in such a form and fashion that they don't normally win in those manners where they're, as I mentioned, on the wrong side of a player dropping a pass, of a coach making a bad decision, you name it. We've seen it all. But I will tell you one thing that has really bothered me. I will say bothered me over the course of the last week or so is this chatter of teams that have been long out of the loop of competitiveness in the National Football League. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they suck. The New York Jets, they suck. The Chicago Bears, they suck. All these teams that just flat out suck, they're in the we got to find the right head coach mode for 2025. I get that. They want to find the next head coach that can take them to the next level. I get that. But there has to be a point where this league that is the number 1 league in sport, let's acknowledge that for what it is. It's the number 1 league in professional sports, the National Football League. Number 1 league in sport. Why does the league allow offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators to interview for head coaching positions while they are representing teams that are in the playoffs? I think it's terrible. I think it's been terrible for a lot of teams. I think it's hurt a lot of teams that have come up short. I think it's a recipe for disaster for a team like the Detroit Lions, who went on to lose to the Washington Commanders in the NFC divisional round because Ben Johnson was interviewing for every single vacancy that was out there in the NFL. I don't like it. And I don't like it for our offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, and his busy schedule. Joe Brady, putting it mildly, has done a good job. Dare I say it? I say mildly, he's done a great job. I want Joe Brady to get an opportunity. I think he deserves it. Fact is, I think he deserves it even more than Brian Daboll did. And here's why. Brian Daboll had Stephon Diggs in his prime. He had a young Josh Allen that was reckless and willing to do whatever his coach told him to do. Didn't have the cachet, the coin to kind of call his own shots a little bit. It was a little easier, I think, for Brian Daboll to succeed than it has been for Joe Brady. And Joe Brady comes in, promoted from within, coming in, off of the Dorsey firing. I didn't expect Joe Brady to do that well when they first made that promotion. Thought it would take a little bit, and they hit the ground running. It was like a revitalization to their offense and a little bit of a rejuvenation to Josh Allen. But I have a buddy of mine, Eric Ellis. He sent me a text, and we've been friends for years. And he said, I watched that Amari Cooper interview today about him being just happy to be on the team with not contributing much. And I thought if Joe Brady is putting together the best plan, what if Joe Brady is putting together the best game plan possible, and that he was holding out on it until now. Everyone gets involved, including Amari, Curtis Samuel, Kincaid. Finally, LOL. And my first response, I like this thought that there's pieces of an offense that are saved for crucial games and such. But my first thought was, well, hopefully, we'll have to see, hopefully, if Joe Brady can take enough time out of his busy schedule to do his job, which is currently calling the offense in the proper form and fashion for the Buffalo Bills. You can't tell me in weeks previously that Joe Brady was distracted. You could tell me this past week that there's more reason to believe that he was, because Buffalo's offense suffered for it. There were plenty of moments in this game. I'm not trying to sound like a nitpicker, but there were plenty of moments in this game between the Bills and the Ravens where the Buffalo Bills could have put this away. This should not have come down to 2 points. Both teams are very good. Buffalo had a 21-10 lead at the half. They were outscored 15-6 the rest of the way. Tale of two halves. It is what it is. 15-6, that's pretty telling. I think that tells you, with turnovers, that this was an offense that did not show up against the Ravens. Buffalo's defense actually put this team in crucial moments on their back. And that was something that we hadn't really seen. The offense has been kind of 60-40 of what has been Buffalo's season thus far. Defense is, dare I say, 45, maybe offense 55 at best. But that was a concern. And that's what made the game so close, was these moments where, yeah, Baltimore's adjusting. They got a great coaching staff. They got some great players, especially in their secondary. I know one of them really well from my Notre Dame fanhood, Kyle Hamilton. He's a stud, probably the best safety in the league right now. But you got who you got, and who you got is a lot more than what most even dared to think in terms of what you had heading into this season. So I look at this as a close game. Really happy to skate by the Ravens, because I think matchup-wise, the Ravens were a horrible matchup for Buffalo, and they were able to skate by it and get past it in the form and fashion they did. It was great. Now they're heading to KC, Arrowhead. Daunting task. We have a history there. We know about the AFC Championship 5 years ago. It was a shellacking, 38-24. Buffalo had a lead at one point. I believe they had a lead at the half. My memory serves me right. Maybe not quite at the half, but they got shellacked. But this time, the Bills are back, and I think they're better than they were 5 years ago. They're younger than they were 5 years ago. The Chiefs, in some ways, are a little older than they were 5 years ago. So it's going to be very interesting to see these two teams match up once again. With all this history within this rivalry, these are without a shadow of a doubt the two best teams in the National Football League, conference-wise aside. The AFC better than the NFC anyway, but if you had no conferences whatsoever, these are the two best teams in the National Football League, bar none. The two best quarterbacks in the National Football League, bar none. There is no debate. They're the only two that are left that have ever been in an MVP conversation this season. Mahomes not as much as Allen, but Mahomes, he's always in the loop of things as far as being one of the best, if not the best in the league. Jalen Hurts hasn't been that good this year. Jaden Daniels probably has a higher MVP case than Jalen Hurts. So there's a lot to this Final Four bracket that says, number one, holy smokes, this is going to be a fun weekend this weekend. But number two, wow, Buffalo really has a shot at this thing. They really have a genuine shot because they match up better with KC than any team in the league. That has been proven. Even in losing moments, the hardcore fans of football know the Buffalo has been able to stand toe-to-toe with KC just about better than anybody. The casuals, the fans that just want to look at accomplishments rather than actual facts, would say, oh, Buffalo always falls short to KC. They'll never beat KC. They're the only team that's actually come close. That's my take, and that's the reality of it. So they advanced to their first AFC Championship game for the second time in 5 seasons, number one. Number two, they're doing it in a form and fashion that nobody thought they would. Josh Allen has thrown for less turnovers, total turnovers, less picks. He's methodical. He's moving the ball effectively. He's spreading the football around. And Buffalo's rushing offense is the best rushing offense that they've had in at least a decade. They have a three-headed Swiss Army knife monster at the running back position with James Cook, Ray Davis, and Ty Johnson. And you better believe it. Those guys better, if Joe Brady's schedule isn't too busy this week, they're going to get work. They're going to get work. Maybe I'm being a little too critical on Joe Brady, but I just don't like that. I don't like it when it's not my team. I wouldn't like it if I was a Lions fan and I saw Ben Johnson was interviewing with 17 different teams. It felt like there was a grocery list of teams that he was interviewing with, and they're in the NFC divisional round, and they're coming off of a 14-15 win season. And just like that, it's over. Just like that, gone. Just like that, the offense couldn't score on Washington, which, man, that was a shocker. I was down and out, as I mentioned. I had food poisoning. I didn't watch any of it. But when I saw it, I was shocked. I really was shocked. But anything is possible in the NFL postseason. So let's get right to it. Let's get to the preview and prediction. Get your popcorn ready, folks. This is the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs AFC title game preview and prediction, which means not only will I preview the game, go into the nitty-gritty, the X's and O's, but I'm also going to give you a score prediction, which is the key to your bets. So betting the scores is not something that I like to do, but some people out there do. Some people say they take my scores. I've been pretty good with my scores this year. So Bills versus Chiefs, AFC title game. This game will be billed as Josh Allen versus Pat Mahomes, but it's Patrick Mahomes versus Buffalo's defense. It's Josh Allen versus Kansas City's defense. And make no mistake about it, you better believe it, Buffalo's defense has shown that they are better in a lot of different ways. They're as healthy as they've been. That was a huge takeaway for me this past week against Baltimore, as I mentioned. Buffalo's defense put the team on their back. Buffalo's offense wasn't as good last week. Buffalo's defense really showed up and showed out, and they played turnover football. They went after the football, they got after the football, and they forced turnovers. If Buffalo's defense can play this way against Patrick Mahomes, they can easily beat the Kansas City Chiefs, because I'm that much more confident on the other side of the football. Bills offense versus Kansas City's defense. Kansas City's defense has to make adjustments comparatively to how they've played Buffalo previously. I think a lot of weapons on this offense have not been seen, have not been heard, and Kansas City better be careful, because the ones that have been heard and seen have been consistently good all season long. Khalil Shakir, obviously I mentioned James Cook, Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, but Amari Cooper, some weeks he's there, some weeks he's not. Keon Coleman, some weeks he's there, some weeks he's not. Dalton Kincaid was banged up throughout this entire season. Curtis Samuel banged up throughout this entire season. So now that they're healthier, as well as the guys I mentioned, the Coopers, the Colemans, Buffalo has a more wide array of weaponry to throw the football to for Josh Allen than what they've had really all year, as healthy a group as they have been all season long. So KC's defense really, to me, is more focused, should be more focused on the secondary aspect of things. Trent McDuffie, huge stud. Coverage linebackers, Nick Bolton, Tranquil. They got a lot of good players that can play a lot of different unique roles, especially with what NFL offenses do these days, trying to get tight ends on the inside, trying to get that mismatch, or trying to get the tight end on the outside even, with some of the freak physical ability that guys like Dalton Kincaid and Travis Kelce and Dawson Knox and as well as Noah Gray, who I think is really underrated. Now, to me, Buffalo spreading the football around makes them as dangerous an offense as any. But what makes Kansas City, what makes their offense so dangerous is solely number 15. He is the straw that stirs the drink, Patrick Mahomes, in terms of extending plays in the passing game. But the guy that really is the sharpest knife in the drawer full of knives is Isaiah Pacheco. And Buffalo's run defense has shown an inability a time or two this year against very violent north-south running backs. Derrick Henry was starting to get the wheels turning as the game progressed last week. First half, Buffalo did a really good job of bottling him up. But as the game wore on, post the first half, second half wise, third quarter, fourth quarter, Derrick Henry really did his damage. He wore down Buffalo's defense, and Lamar couldn't really take advantage of it. I think that was another, talking point about last week. But when you look at things in terms of KC's season, yes, they've had a lot of one-score game victories. Yes, they haven't been as dominant as they've been in previous years, but they also haven't been as healthy as they've been in previous years. And a big factor within this offense for the Kansas City Chiefs that has been in and out of the lineup, has been in the lineup, but has not been really active in the lineup is Isaiah Pacheco. And honestly, I think he is one of the most violent runners that the game has to offer outside of Derrick Henry. So Buffalo going up against two back-to-back studs at the running back position. Oh, and by the way, they signed a running back from 6 years ago to spell Pacheco when Pacheco was out that didn't do too bad doing it and wasn't too bad a player 6 years ago, and that's Kareem Hunt. So Andy Reid is, for my money, one of the best head coaches that's ever set foot on a sideline within the National Football League. Bill Belichick is obviously the most accomplished. I got to give shout outs to guys like Bill Walsh, Vince Lombardi, Tom Landry for what they did for the game. I put Marv Levy in there too. Bill Parcells. There's a lot. There's a lot of great coaches that have coached this great game. But Andy Reid, offensively, there has never been a coach that has been able to draw up plays and utilize players the way that Andy Reid has been able to on the offensive side. I've never seen a guy continuously evolve through the years. Guys like McNabb, Favre, Mahomes, Vic, quarterback-wise. And then running back-wise, guys like Brian Westbrook, LaShawn McCoy, Isaiah Pacheco. You look at these players, and a lot of people would say, oh, they're very similar. They're actually not. They're actually not. And that's what makes it so tantalizing. When you think of Andy Reid and his acumen as a coach, to know that this guy has been able to succeed with very different players, that one might be predominantly known for being a rushing quarterback like Mike Vick. The other one's a gunslinger in Brett Favre. The other one, Donovan McNabb, he's kind of a hybrid of both. He's been able to make an omelet without many eggs a time or two in his career. So it's a riveting team because, I look at it as a Bills fan, I want Buffalo to always beat the Chiefs, of course. But these past years when the Chiefs have gotten past Buffalo in the playoffs, it's kind of like that old adage of tipping your cap. You have to respect. You have to, I hate to say it, but you have to beat the best to be the best. And in order for Buffalo to be the best, they got to beat the best. They have to. They have to get past the Chiefs in this one and get to the Super Bowl. I think this is for everything because you never know how long it's going to be before you make it back to an AFC title game. You never know how long it's going to be before you get back to a Super Bowl. One of my biggest takeaways of the Bills' 4 straight Super Bowls is not that they lost, but that they went to 4 in a row, of course, but that Dan Marino only went to 1 his entire career. I believe it was his rookie year, if not his second year, and he never went to another one again. So this game is a cruel you-know-what. And it has a way of really, really hurting you if you don't show up in these moments. So Buffalo has to show up in this moment. This has to be the night that the Bills slay the dragon, and the Chiefs are the dragon. Are they as talented a dragon as they were when they had Tyreek Hill? No, they are not. Are they more diverse I would say so. They have, a lot of Swiss Army knife type weapons. Xavier Worthy being one that I don't really think they've tapped into as much as I thought they would. So to go to Eric's kind of talking point, will the Chiefs draw stuff up for Worthy that they didn't draw up in previous weeks? It's a worthy topic. See what I did there? So going to it, let's get to some comments. Kig on Scooter says, hey, let's go Buffalo. And let's see what else. Mike Gerace, man, this guy has been following me for years. He says, in JA17, we trust. Masterful job by Allen and the coaches this season. I think it's safe to say that Mike's got an MVP vote for Josh Allen, as do I. Let's go to another one. Dan Kirkpatrick. He says this is the most fundamentally sound and dynamic offense Buffalo has had since the 90s. Josh doesn't have to throw for 300 yards for them to win. No, he does not. As a matter of fact, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I would bet that Josh Allen didn't even throw for 200 yards last week. I don't even know if he threw for $150. And he didn't need to. So that just goes to show you, Buffalo can find ways to win. They've proven that all season long. They can win in a lot of different ways, too. They can attack in a lot of different ways, to Dan's point here, piggybacking off of that. I was really high on the Bills' rushing offense being better this year than what it was previously. I've been pounding that hammer, or drum, I should say, beating that drum for the last 4 or 5 years. I felt like with Brian Daboll, they never ran the football. And people would say to me, well, Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, they're not Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're not. I know that. I'm aware of that. But I will tell you, they could run the ball. And it's been proven that they can run the ball because they've went to other teams and they've ran the ball. So I think there is a difference, with how the offensive system, play calls, scheme wants to utilize those guys. Play caller wise, schematically, whatever it may be, all the above, I think. And that just really says a lot. Solo Thought Sports. Nice logo. I love the diamond. Your offense isn't so singular, player dependent like previous years. Do we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room? I wonder. I really do wonder, as I have these last, couple weeks, how is Stephon Diggs feeling right now? Where is he at? What's he up to these days? Is he okay? Is he doing all right? Obviously, the guy got hurt, so I want to be a little nice, but man, what a bet on yourself blunder that has been. And it's weird how things work out. The football gods, sometimes they're not on your side, and sometimes they are. Diggs walks out the door, goes to Houston. Then, they traded him, but goes to Houston. Tears his ACL, doesn't play hardly at all. Buffalo's offense is better without him than they were with him. Maybe not statistically. Maybe there isn't one guy that has the numbers that Diggs did. I think it'd be pretty hard pressed to find that, because really over a 4-year stretch, I've said this hundreds of times, over a 4-year stretch, I think he's the best Bills wideout maybe in franchise history. But I'd have to check, but it'd be pretty damn close. If not, he'd be it. But didn't work. Didn't work for a lot of different reasons. We don't have to get into that, but I will say I agree with this thought that Josh was forcing things to appease the wide receiver one in the room. And Gabe Davis, I have the utmost before I say this, I have the utmost respect for Gabe Davis, but last season he was so far away from what he was the previous year. It was a steep drop off from 2 years ago to what ended up being last season. I have never seen a receiver fall off that hard. And when he was a free agent, there was due to the cap situation, I knew that there was zero chance that Buffalo was going to bring him back. Not only because he's not worth what he got paid, and that was proven. He, I think, did get hurt as well, but even prior, he wasn't really putting up numbers or anything like that. But $13 million a year for that guy, and what are you paying him $13 million a year for? What did he do to prove that he was worth that money? I don't know. I don't think anyone can answer that question. I really don't. Going to it again. Dan Kirkpatrick says the O-line is playing with an edge. Schnoman said keep running when he was mic'd up. I love it. I love that grit. I love that intensity. We got over 1,000 tuning in right now. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody live. Western New York Wrestling Central. I love it. I love our three-headed attack. Reminds me of Shady, Mike Gillisley, and Carlos. Shout out to those guys. Man, that was fun. They all had a little bit of something. Shady was, I think he's one of the best running backs of his era. I don't know if Shady is a Hall of Famer. I don't. But I would put him up there. I'd put him up there among the running backs in his era. I would definitely put him up there, along with Marshawn Lynch, another former Buffalo Bill that I do think should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way. So getting right to it, last and certainly not least, I want to get to a score prediction. Of course, this will be, for all intents and purposes, a slobber knocker. This is going to be a back and forth battle that is going to see points put up on the board by both teams. I don't know, when I first put this down, I don't know if both of these teams are going to score this many points, but I think what I want people to look at is the closeness of this game. This will be a close game. These two quarterbacks are two great quarterbacks. They're too great of quarterbacks to allow either one of themselves to get blown out. I think Pat Mahomes will be at his best. I know Josh Allen's coming ready. So I'm going to go with a score that I think is indicative of somebody else making a moment. And that is 31-28. Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe, will be tied late in the game. I'm not saying overtime. Never want to say overtime. But I think it'll be tied late in the game, and the Buffalo Bills will call on number 2, Tyler Bass, to win them the game with a tie score. And I think the fact that it'll be tied will help Tyler Bass take a little bit of the pressure off. Yes, if he misses it, it goes into overtime. If he makes it, the Bills win the game. Obviously, the new playoff rule takes a little bit out of the last, 2021 divisional round game a little bit. But I think Tyler Bass is going to get it done. He's looked good these last few weeks. I feel like the football gods are finally going to give one to Buffalo. This past week, I noticed, I'm going to get emotional. I noticed back in 2004 and 2007, so as a diehard Boston Red Sox fan, I noticed those 2 years, there were 2 moments in those games, World Series games, where I looked at it and said, you know what? The gods, the sports gods, they just might be, I'm getting teary-eyed. They just might be on our side. They just might be on our side. And God, I hope I'm right. I really do. I hope I'm right. I hope that this is it. Because if this is it, I don't give a shit who we play. I don't care if it's the Eagles. I don't care if it's the Commanders. I want the Super Bowl. I want the Bills in the Super Bowl. Give me anybody. Hell, have me play the Chiefs again somehow. If that was a choice, I would choose to play them a second week in a row. Give me anybody against the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl, and I like our chances. Tyler Bass getting it done. The football gods righting the wrong of Scott Norwood, and his wide right. Tyler Bass through the uprights puts the Bills back in the Super Bowl for the first time since 1993. You can't write it. You can't write it any better than how I just said it. So let's go with that. Let's go with that. Pat Mahomes does his thing, but it's just not enough. I do think KC is a little worn out from these deep playoff runs. You can't continue to go to the playoffs and go this deep in the playoffs, go to Super Bowl year after year after year without it wearing you out. Just ask Steve Tasker. Just ask Jim Kelly whether you win them or you lose them. It adds up. Ask Tom Brady. It took Tom Brady 10 years to go from ring number 3 to ring number 4. Not many people bring that up when they talk about him in the GOAT discussion. And obviously you're not bringing it up as a detraction. You're bringing it up to illuminate the fact that it's extremely hard to go to a Super Bowl. It's extremely hard to win a Super Bowl. Just ask John Elway. Just ask Dan Marino. Very tough. Obviously, Jim Kelly would tell you that too. But I would tell you this. I'll take these guys over anybody. I love this team. I love the story of this team this year. This feels like this is our year. And if I'm wrong, it's another year I was wrong. Another year where maybe next year's our year. But I feel like every year is our year as long as we got Josh Allen healthy, throwing the rock. That's the reality of it. And I said that back in May. I said that in June when everybody was saying the Jets and Dolphins were going to win this frickin' division. Come on, give me a break. Give me a break. What a joke. So, honestly, this is a point in the show where I'm fired up now. I feel a lot better than I did when I started the show, so maybe this was good for me, but this was a great one. I really love hopping on here live, getting to some comments, giving my preview and prediction, keeping Mahomes in the pocket, shutting down Pacheco. Those are my two priorities of the game for Buffalo's defense. Offensively, what can they do differently than what they've done successfully? Spread the football around. That's the biggest takeaway from me. And utilize your weapons. And that's what Josh Allen has done. No mistakes, no turnovers. Can't have it. Can't have it against a team as good as the Chiefs. They will take advantage. Those are the opportunities that give the Chiefs the air in their lungs to win a game that they should not win. There you have it. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. This was a hell of a show. I greatly appreciate all of you guys tuning in. And of course, I am hoping, praying that this is the year the Bills go to the Super Bowl. The next time I could be talking to you guys, I could be previewing a Buffalo Bills Super Bowl appearance. Wouldn't that be the best episode ever? Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. And hopefully I'll see you guys next week with some great stuff.